There's a war underneath there, and I'm talking dead serious. It's been going on since that time. Since late August of 1979, our military, the Russian military, basically the militaries of the world, have been in constant conflict with the outer space alien. The small gray, the large gray, the reptilians, the whole thing. There are 11 distinct races of aliens. Two of them have one.
In September of 1995, Phil Schneider delivered a lecture that would soon become the subject of widespread intrigue. 4 months later, his lifeless body was discovered in his apartment with a catheter tube wrapped tightly around his neck. Phil's life was forever changed in 1979 when he was working on a highly secretive underground military base near Dulce, New Mexico. It was there that he began to become suspicious of the project's true intention, as he witnessed several American Special Forces soldiers operating in and around the area. His team was tasked with building an addition to the deep underground base and began by drilling 4 2-mile-long holes into the desert floor that were to be linked together with tunnels. Phil's job was to go down the holes, check the rock samples, and recommend the explosives to deal with the particular rock. Shortly after work commenced, he noticed an unusual acrid odor, like the worst garbage he had ever smelled, combined with black soot emanating from the holes. Then, drilling equipment in the holes mysteriously began to malfunction. Phil Schneider's harrowing experience is recounted in a startling encounter that began when he and a Green Beret were lowered into one of the holes to determine the problem. As they descended, they suddenly found themselves inside a vast complex where, according to Phil, they came face to face with a towering 7-foot-tall gray alien, whose putrid odor was more noxious than any garbage can imaginable. Immediately, Phil drew his Walter PPK pistol and took down 2 of the extraterrestrial beings. In response, a third alien retaliated by shooting a blue beam at him, which resulted in the loss of 3 of his fingers and the burning off of all his toenails, leaving his left shoe charred. The Green Beret accompanying him intervened by pushing Phil aside and pressing the button to ascend. Tragically, the Green Beret perished in the ensuing battle. What began as a scuffle quickly escalated into a full-blown battle, with the Green Berets unleashing their most potent firepower against the alien combatants. In response, the extraterrestrials deployed their own deadly weapons, firing bolts of radiant blue energy with a mere wave of their hands. The same bolts that had blown off Phil's fingers were causing the Special Forces soldiers to literally turn inside out. Despite their fierce resistance, 66 troops perished in the conflict, while only Phil and 2 others survived. According to Phil, there have been ongoing conflicts with these extraterrestrials since that fateful day in late August 1979. In his lecture, Phil said that there were a staggering 1,477 underground bases worldwide, with each one carrying a jaw-dropping price tag of $17 to $19 billion. Of the 131 bases located within the United States, he said that they were all interconnected by high-speed magneto-leviton trains. Prior to Phil's untimely death, he had been on a lecture for 2 years, divulging information about government cover-ups, black budgets, and UFOs. He maintained that in 1954, during the Eisenhower administration, the federal government conspired with the extraterrestrials in a treaty known as the 1954 Greada Treaty, which allowed the Greys to test their implanting techniques on select citizens in exchange for extraterrestrial technology. However, as time went on, the aliens broke their side of the bargain, abducting and implanting thousands of individuals without reporting back to the government. As Phil shared his story and began giving lectures across the United States in the mid-90s, he grew increasingly convinced that he was on a government hit list. According to Donna, a waitress at the 76 Truck Stop diner that Phil frequented, he confided in her that he had survived 19 attempts on his life. She recounted how Phil had warned her, "If they ever say that I have committed suicide, you will know that I have been murdered." During one of his lectures, Phil Schneider recalled a terrifying experience when he was followed by 2 government vans with G14 plates and armed occupants carrying Uzis while driving with a friend to Joshua Tree in California. Fed up with being threatened, Phil returned his security card to the government and issued a warning that he would release 140,000 pages of classified documents revealing the government structure and plans if any harm came his way, a task he claimed he had already begun. In early January 1996, Phil's friend Al Pratt grew concerned about his friend's well-being. Despite seeing Phil's car in the parking lot of his Wilsonville, Oregon apartment for several days, Al received no response when he knocked on Phil's door. Eventually, on January 17, 1996, Al, the manager of the Autumn Park Apartments, and a detective from the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office entered the apartment. Inside, they found Phil Schneider's lifeless body. He had been dead for 5 to 7 days. While the Clackamas County Coroner's Office initially attributed Phil's death to a stroke, disturbing details emerged in the following days, leading some to believe that Phil had not died from natural causes, but had instead been murdered. Circumstances surrounding Phil's death have been a topic of controversy and speculation. While his obituary in the Oregonian newspaper stated that he died from a stroke on January 17th, his death certificate mentions that he strangled himself with surgical tubing, which suggests he committed suicide. If this were the case, he would have had to wrap the tubing around his neck 3 times and tie a knot in the back before collapsing headfirst into his wheelchair. Details of his death are not clear-cut, and there are inconsistencies in the official reports that have led some to believe he was actually murdered. Phil's death remains shrouded in mystery, with his ex-wife Cynthia convinced that foul play was involved. According to Cynthia, Phil was likely drugged and then strangled with a rubber hose found wrapped around his neck. In addition, she recalls friends telling her about a mysterious blonde woman who had been seen with him just weeks before his death. Despite the official cause of death being listed as suicide, Cynthia remains determined to uncover the truth. The authenticity of Phil's claims regarding his encounters with aliens has been subject to widespread speculation. Some have questioned if Phil was a deceptive fraudster, exploiting the trust of those who seek the truth, while others believe he genuinely experienced the phenomenon. If Phil's account of extraterrestrial encounters was entirely fabricated, then what could have been the motive for his murder? However, if Phil was indeed telling the truth, the consequences of his testimony are dire for humanity. Unfortunately, the truth behind Phil's untimely death and the prospect of a government cover-up may forever remain shrouded in mystery. Meanwhile, rumors of strange happenings near the Dulce base continue circulating among residents to this very day.